it's Karen with Yes Please PaperCrafts, and in this video I'm going to be doing some more organizing, and this time I'm working with punches. And I've been working on this project, organizing my punches, for probably a few months, just off and on whenever I kind of feel like taking some punches out and kind of doing the things that I'm doing to organize them. And so this is going to be more about organizing the punches and not necessarily how to store them. I'm going to do a part 2 showing you kind of different ways that you can store your punches, but this is just going to be more organizing and kind of like, trying to figure out a system to kind of know what you have so that you can use them more and just kind of be able to find them in your craft room. So I'm kind of doing this a little bit based on two different things. The first one is a video that I watched from Lauren Hines at Craft Some Joy, and I will leave a link to Lauren's channel in the description below. And I watched a video where she created a visual reference guide for all of her punches. Now she did it a little bit differently than I'm going to do mine, and so if you want to go check her out, you may like her system better. So I always say it's a good idea to just go and look at the way different people organize things, because sometimes what might work for me might not work for you, and how Lauren did her punches may be a better fit for how you want to organize yours. Okay, so that was the one video. The other one was a video from Janet at RTS Scrapbooking, because she's the one that really started me out with using visual reference guides and kind of the way to organize things. And I got this kind of from her organizing paper pads. And so I will leave a link in the description below to Janet's video, and her channel is called RTS Scrapbooking, just in case you don't know. And Janet has since moved over to Patreon earlier this year, but she has tons and tons of videos still out on YouTube that you can still watch. And if you want to follow her over at Patreon, she only charges $1 a month, and she puts out tons of content. So it's well worth the $1 to go and watch Janet. I just wish Patreon was a little bit easier to use. And I did have a way to watch it on my TV. I have a Samsung smartphone, and at one point, Samsung allowed me to cast the phone over to my TV, and I could watch it there. And then just, I don't know, a couple months ago, after I'd watched for maybe, I had it working for maybe, I don't know, about a month. And then all of a sudden they gave me an update on my phone, and now I can't do that anymore. It says I can only cast to my TV from a Samsung app. So Patreon, unfortunately, is not a Samsung app, so it doesn't let me do that. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. One of these days I'm going to figure it out. I think somebody suggested maybe connecting a computer or a laptop to my TV, and I might try doing that. But yeah, so for now it's kind of a little bit of a bummer because I can't watch it on my TV. I have to watch it on my phone or my laptop. So anyway, I just went off on a tangent there. Okay, this video is going to be kind of informal. These Organize With Me videos, I'm just going to kind of work on a project and kind of share with you my process. It's not a complete finished project because I'm still in the middle of organizing, but I do want to share this with you guys, because if I waited until I completely finished organizing my entire craft room, I wouldn't be able to make any videos. I'm still working on organizing, and I have a long ways to go. So you may have seen pictures of my scrapbook room, or you may have seen me show videos or pictures in my videos of my scrapbook room, and it does look organized, but to be honest, it's not. It's very neat and tidy. Everything has a place to be, but I still struggle with trying to find things and to kind of know what I have. And so I have been on this journey since I started my channel last year in July, to try to figure out ways to organize and be able to put my hands on things in my craft room very quickly and very easily. And so with Janet's idea of using the paper pad visual reference guide, that has changed my life for using my paper pads, because I can very easily go and find a paper pad within just probably less than a minute. It's just amazing to me the differences that it has made, and how I can find paper in my craft room. And I just love it so much. So thank you, Janet, for all of your awesome ideas on organizing. And let me just go ahead and share with you the paper pad reference guide, so you can see what I based my organization for the punches. So I based it off of these reference guides that I keep right next to me in my Raskog cart, and it's these two books. And in the book, I have a visual representation of each one of my paper pads, and then on the back of each one of these pages, I have a location in my craft room of where I could find this. So for example, this paper pad is the Recollections, Love and Devotion, and I have it listed under seasonal because it's kind of Valentine's Day. And so I put that under seasons, and I can come right here and I know exactly where this is. It's in my storage cubes, number 86, and right behind me I have my paper pad. So I'm going to show you how fast and easy this is. And I'm going to find number 86 over here. And here it is. So I can find any paper pad in my craft room that I have in this reference guide so quickly and so easily, and so it's just awesome. The other thing that's really awesome about having these visual reference guides is that when I'm working on a project, I don't have to pull stuff out of my storage in order to look at it. I can just look through here and I can see exactly what I have, and you know, I'm working on a project where I'm using, you know, like maybe birthday, and I want to have something that has birthday paper. I can just go to this category here, which is celebrations, and I can see that I have this paper, and it has these cupcakes and confetti and different things that are I could use for birthday cards or birthday layout. And so it's just really awesome. So okay, so that's kind of where I started with the organization for my punches. So I thought, it doesn't matter to me where I store the punches in my craft room, and I have them actually in multiple different places. It only matters if I know where they are and I can find them. And so my thought was that I could store them in different places, because I have some in my Raskog cart that sits right next to me when I'm working, because I like to have some of my punches close by. I have ones that I use quite often, and so those will be right next to me. Unfortunately, I can't put all my punches there because I don't have the space in my Raskog cart, and so I have some other storage that's in a different spot in my craft room. And so I have some punches also that are stored in a, let's see, in a box like this. This is the Slim Iris case, the Iris Slim Project case. And they sell these at Michael's under the Recollections brand. You can also get them on Amazon.com. And I'll have links in the description below to any of the different things I'm showing you here. But this particular case does hold these punches. And this is a Creative Memories border punch system, and it has these little cartridges, and so I have this all together stored in this plastic case, and then I have it sitting in one of my Calyx cubes. I also have some of my punches in an Alex drawer unit. It's those 5 drawer units from IKEA, and so I have some there as well. And I'll see if I can insert pictures here of kind of some of the places in my craft room that I keep my punches, so you can kind of get an idea of the different places in my craft room that punches live. And so my philosophy on organizing and how I organize my things in my craft room has really shifted pretty dramatically over the past year. I find that I don't have to put everything together in one place, so it doesn't matter to me anymore that I used to want to put like all my punches has to go in the same type of storage. I wanted them all to be together, and everything just had to be in one spot. And so that was kind of my way of organizing. And what was really frustrating about that was that sometimes I would run out of space. So if I had a drawer that I had punches in, and I would buy another punch and my drawer was full, I would have to find someplace else to put that punch. And so it really kind of, where you store it is actually driving your organization rather than the other way around. You really need to organize it, and it doesn't matter where you store it. So I hope that makes sense, because as long as you know where things are, it doesn't really matter. And one of the other products I think is really awesome for storing punches is the Totally Tiffany punch storage bags. I don't have any of those because that came out after I had already kind of gotten storage for my punches, but had I not had storage already, I might have invested in those. And I believe that Janet uses those. Janet at RTS Scrapbooking, she uses those storage bags. And I think that Lauren Hines at Craft Some Joy uses a cabinet that she purchases, a metal cabinet from IKEA. So I think there's different ways to store your punches, but what I'm going to be sharing with you in this video is more about how to organize them. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with, I'm going to show you kind of the process for when I have a punch, how I go about creating a visual representation of that punch, and some of my thoughts behind how I'm going to kind of make it easier to kind of find what I'm looking for quicker. So I'm going to push this over a little bit to get it out of my way. And I'm going to share with you a couple of different things here. I started out with this size of a reference guide and quickly realized that it was not going to work because I have many punches that are much bigger than these little tags. And so I got this particular idea from, I was doing color swatches, and I was using this size tag to do color swatches, and that worked really well because I didn't really need a large space to do that. And I think I have that color swatch here. Let's see. Do I have that? Oh no, that's on my mixed media cart, so I don't have it right close to me. But the other thing was that I wanted something that I could put on a ring like this. And this is just a ring that you can kind of open and close like that. And I believe this particular one is, I don't know if it's 2 inches or 2.5 inches. Let's see. I think it's I think it's a 2-inch ring. They have them in different sizes. I think they have like 1 inch, 1.5 inch. I like this particular size. And so I like this because I can hang it on a hook on my Raskog cart. So my plan for this is that I'm going to create this visual reference for my punches and hang it on the side of my Raskog cart so that it's available for me whenever I'm working on a project and I want to use a punch. I can just sit here and flip through this, and when I find one that I like to use, like this cupcake one, then I will know where to go in my craft room to get that punch. Now right now I have not come up with the way to actually number these or put the location. I'm still trying to kind of sort that out in my mind on how I would do that. But I'm going to probably do something similar to what I did here, which was if I have a paper pad, I'm going to put the location. So for instance, this is a 6x6 paper pad, and it was on a hanging shelf that was right behind my workspace. And so this is hanging shelf 48. And then my 12x12 paper pads were in storage cubes. And so I used SC for storage cubes. And I also am writing this in pencil because if I move something around, I can easily just erase this and add a different, like numbering lettering system. So one of the things that I found after I started doing this was that if you do decide to use abbreviations like this, like HS is hanging shelf, and SC is storage cube, and maybe I have something like Alex drawer unit 1 or something, and just trying to like have a way to know where in your craft room this is, you might want to write this down somewhere. So my plans is to actually write the abbreviations on the front here because I was looking at this the other day, and I think I was making a video and I was talking about paper pads, and so I was talking about this reference guide, and I was looking at that and I couldn't remember what SC stood for. So I can see that if I have, and this is not bad because it's only really 2 locations in my craft room where I have paper pads. I have them, in the storage cubes and also on a shelf. So I could pretty much remember that. But for the punches, I'm planning to have those in probably four or five places in my craft room. And so I'm going to probably want to write down the abbreviations and then the location so that I can remember those. I'm kind of an older person, so I could write it down and like 5 minutes later not remember what I intended. So I'll probably come up with like all the different locations in my craft room where I want to put the different punches, and then come up with an abbreviation, and then I'll go back later and like say for instance the Stampin' Up! 1 3/8 inch circle punch. I know that that's going to live in my Raskog cart. And then I also have these bins in my Raskog cart. This is a fridge bin from the Dollar Tree. And so these are really cool. They're the kitchen essentials, and they're $1, and you can fit 4 of these in the Raskog cart. And so I have a couple of these in my cart, and I thought, well, I could like say if I have the 1 3/8 inch circle in this, I have several bins. I could have like Raskog 1, Raskog 2, and then that way if I'm looking for the Stampin' Up! 1 3/8 inch circle and it says, you know, Raskog cart 1, I know that it's in the first bin in my Raskog cart. And I'm not really sure if I'm going to number all the punches or not, like what I did with the paper pads, because the punches already do have a visual representation on them. And you can kind of see what it is just by looking at the actual punch. I did start putting labels on some of the punches where it doesn't really have. That's the thing I wish that manufacturers would change about the way that they manufacture punches. I wish that they would put the name of the punch on the punch, but they don't. They just put the brand. So for instance, this is a Stampin', no, this is the EK Success. Okay, let's see. This is a Stampin' Up, so know that because it says Stampin' Up. This is an EK Tools because it says EK, but nowhere on here does it tell you the name of this punch. Now some of them, it's not a big deal because I can tell that this is a 2-inch scallop circle punch. But others, I want to be able to know the name of the punch. And it's especially important when you have punches that are very similar. And so I'm going to give y'all an example of something that's super similar, where it would be good to know exactly which punch I'm going to be looking for. And I had this one here and I was like, did I get the same punch twice? But it's actually different. But it's very, very similar. So I have this punch here, which is a scallop punch. And it has like a little kind of circle there. And then I have this one here, which is just a plain scallop punch. But it's very, very similar. And so I would like to maybe put the name of those punches actually on this card and also on the punch itself. And so that way when I go to grab the punch, I'll grab the right one. And so I did start doing this here where I put this label here that has the manufacturer's name and then the name of the punch. And I'm kind of struggling with that because a lot of the punches that I have, I've had for, you know, 8 years or sometimes longer. And so I don't really know what the names of them are. But I've been going back and trying to figure out, you know, what is the name of each punch and then creating the label. Now you could just go ahead and write it, you know, with a pencil or a pen. I don't like to do that though because I have problems with my hands, and so it hurts my hands to write. I get pain in my hand right here if I try to write things, and so it's easier for me just to use the label maker. And you can get the label maker. A lot of times people think, well, the label makers are so expensive, and they are if you buy the label maker refills from Brother. But if you buy the generic ones from Amazon, they're actually pretty reasonable and it lasts for a really long time. So I don't really mind using the label tape. I've also, you know, kind of like figured out ways to use my label maker so I'm not wasting tape. And I do have a video where I shared a little bit of a couple of tips on using the label maker, and I will put a link in the description below to that video. I think that video it was combined with something else. It was another Organize With Me video, and I was talking about organizing wood veneer. And in that video, I gave some tips on using a label maker that could save you a lot of money because you won't be wasting your tape. Okay, so let's see what else. Okay, so the size of what you do for your visual reference guide is really dependent on, you know, kind of like the punches you have. And I ended up on this particular size partly because I had a bunch of paper left over from another project. And I just use a really cheap white cardstock that I picked up at Sam's Club. And it's heavy enough to be useful, but it's very inexpensive. And I was doing another project and I ended up with this paper, and this is 11 by 3.5 inches. And so I thought, well, if I cut it in half, I can get 2 cards from each one of these pieces of scrap paper that I have. And I think that would be a big enough size that it would fit most of the punches that I have. Now there's a few punches that I have that are larger, and those are punches that they make circles like doilies. And so with those, I'll have to try to figure out another way to do that. I might just like punch part of it, maybe like a half a circle, and I'd have a visual representation without having the entire circle there. So so that's kind of how I decided on the size of my reference book, was mainly because I had a whole stack of this cardstock already, and I felt like this was a good size, and so I just decided to go with that size. The other thing that I like to do when I'm making this kind of a reference book, especially since it's not really going to be a book, like this one is in a, I used the disc-bound disc system with the punch that punches out these holes. And it's the same kind of a system that's used by the Happy Planner. And so this one, I didn't round the corners or anything, but this one, I'm just going to hang it onto the side of my Raskog cart. And so I decided that I would just punch the corners. And I use this corner rounder punch. I love this. This is my favorite punch ever. And I'm trying to remember the brand. It's Kato Mara. I'll show you the name of it right there. And it's really an awesome punch, and it has 3 different sizes: small, medium, large. I did get this from Amazon, so I'm going to be using that punch. I'm also going to be using this to make holes. You could use any type of hole punch. I just like using the crocodile because I can go through a whole stack of cards. I don't have to do them one at a time. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a few of these, and just kind of, I'll chat while I'm doing it, and you can kind of get an idea of the process that I'm going through in order to create this visual reference guide. So this is something I'll probably throw away because it's too small. It's possible that you could do multiple ones, so you could have one with your smaller punches in a smaller size, and then have one with the bigger punches. But I think for now, I'm just going to do them all this size. And maybe I'll just keep this just in case I change my mind. But because these are very small, it might work to do it this size. I'll have to think about that. You know, not everything has to match. I used to think that it did, but I'm kind of a perfectionist, and so I kind of struggle with that. But I'm slowly kind of getting to where I can do things without having to make everything match. It still bugs me sometimes though. Okay, what else am I going to do? Oh, the other thing I was going to tell y'all was I have been punching some of the things out with white cardstock, and sometimes I do it with colored cardstock. And with the different shapes, what I decided to do was I decided that I would punch the shape out of the bottom. So I pushed the punch all the way up until the edge of it hit the paper. I punched the shape out. So now I have, and I'm holding that way over there, sorry. Let me move this out the way too. It's probably giving y'all a glare. So I did this where I punched out the shape, and now I have a hole. And I decided to do it that way because then I can use this if I wanted to try to see, like, let me see if I can find an example of some paper or something so I can kind of show y'all. So let's just say that I had this paper here and I wanted to punch out this flower, and I had all of my different sizes of circle punches, I could just take this and lay it on top to kind of get an idea if it would look good or not to punch with that punch. And so that was the kind of the reason for leaving the hole there. But I kind of also wanted to see what the shape would be. And so I punched it again out of a different color cardstock. This is just kind of some cheap cardstock that was in really bright colors that I thought, well, I'm probably not going to use that. So I use it for organization projects. So you can see here that I did that with all of these different shapes, where I have the cutout at the bottom and then the punch shape there. And this one was probably the biggest one that I had, and I kind of almost ran out of room there, but it still worked out. So you can see that all of these are, you know, like cut out. Now, I did think that it might be a problem to leave it like that. And if it does become a problem where this is kind of fragile because it's, you know, it's got that shape and it might get caught on things, I thought that I could take some plastic, maybe plastic packaging, you know, or something, and just glue it behind it and kind of make like a window. And I did something like that for the border punches. So let me show y'all those. So what I did was I punched the border, and then I put some additional paper. I kind of backed it, because if I didn't do that, all of these little edges were catching on everything. And I haven't completely finished backing all of these, and I'll just kind of give y'all an example of where that's happening back here, especially with this one at the almost the very back. Where did it go? Oh, I think I moved some stuff around. I think it's this one right here. But this one right here is catching on everything. And you can see there how delicate that is. So I really need to put something there to keep that from getting damaged. And so that's why I decided to kind of back it with the cardstock. Now, if you look at this, you might notice that a lot of these I have pink, and then some of them I use blue. And one of the thoughts I had was that, well, if I'm going to have to back these punch shapes anyway, why don't I put, give some meaning to it by giving, using a specific color to, you know, kind of describe the type of punch it is. So these ones that have the hot pink cardstock are actually lace punches. They create lace. It completely separates from the paper. And so these are, I think it's called, yeah, you call it lace. And so these are all lace punches. And then the blue ones are all border punches. The border punches, when you punch it out, the border stays attached to the rest of your paper. And so I thought that'd be kind of cool. I could, you know, use the blue for a border punch, the hot pink for a lace punch, and maybe if I had other types of punches, I could, you know, use a different color. I do have these Martha Stewart punches. I think I have 3 of them that have not only a border punch, it also has a corner punch, and you can make frames. And so I thought maybe I would use a different color for any of the ones that you can use for frames. So I also have some Creative Memories punches, I think, that are for frames, which are these 2 right here. This is the Baroque frame and then the petal frame. And so I'll probably put those together, or at least use the same color to back those particular punches. Now, I'm not going to organize this reference guide by the type of punch. I'm going to organize it in a way that makes sense to me, so that if I'm looking for, say, a floral punch, I might have all my flowers grouped together. If I'm looking for a something for, I don't know, travel, because I do have like a jumbo jet, and then I have like the car truck border punch from Creative Memories, I might have a category called travel. So I think that I'm going to be organizing this by different categories, which I haven't quite come up with all the different categories that I'm going to use. I just want to get all of these cards made and make an inventory of all the punches that I have, and then I will just go and kind of figure out what categories I want. And I think what I'm going to do is make divider tabs, and so have those kind of like divided out. And I'll probably also make a cover as well to kind of protect it. And I'll do that probably by covering some laminate, like taking some cardstock and maybe laminating it and doing that. Or possibly, I think for this one, I actually got some plastic folders, I think from Target or Walmart on clearance. And I just cut those, and those make really nice covers. It's really thick plastic. And so if I could find something like that, I might use that on here. If not, I'll just laminate some cardstock for the covers. Okay, so let's make a couple of these, and you can kind of see the process for how I do this. And I'll start by doing this one here, which is a border punch. And for the border punch, what I was doing is I just put it right in the middle, and I'm not really being exact. I just kind of putting it, you know, to where the punch is kind of in the middle. And I'm just going to punch it one time, and that's all I do. I don't really need to see more of the pattern. I think having that there is enough, because I know that it's a border punch, and if I keep punching it, I will get this shape over and over again. So that's all I do. And then I will just take my corner rounder and go ahead and round off the corners here. And just like that, okay? And then I would take my label maker and put the label here, and then I'll just take a piece of paper and put it behind. And I just glue that with some of this Barely Art Precision Craft Glue. I've been using this. I also like the Art Glitter Glue, but I was having trouble finding that one. So I picked this Barely Art glue up, and I love it. It's awesome. It's very similar to the Art Glitter Glue and very, very easy to use. So I've been using that. And so I would just take and glue a piece of colored cardstock to the back there. And then the other thing I wanted to kind of show y'all is that if you want to make sure your holes always go in the right place, you can make a template. So what I did here was I had this piece of paper that's exactly the same size as all these cards, and then I created a hole where I wanted it to be. And so what I can do here is just lay these two on top of each other and take my hole punch and just line it up with the, see if I can get this in the camera frame. But I'm just going to line it up so that the hole is, you know, I'm using that top card as a guide, and that's why I wrote on it with a pen so that it was more visible to me. I could really see where the hole was, because if it's just white on white, it's really hard to see it. And I can get the hole in exactly the same place on every single one of these cards, because if it's not, that bothers me. And then once I have the card created, I'm just going to add it to my ring here, and just as easy as that. And let me show y'all how I do a shape, just so we can do one of those. I'm just going to grab, oops. One of the things with doing all these punches is you get all this stuff that you had to keep putting in the trash there. Okay, let's go ahead and do this one. This is a 1/4 inch scallop punch, and it's got the measurements there. And so what I do is I put this in until you can see here it goes all the way to the edge of the punch. And I thought that would be useful information if I was trying to do something and I wanted to kind of know the measurement for how far you know, that kind of goes up on the page when you line it up with the edge of the punch. And I'm just going to center it and then punch it. Okay, and I get this shape. All right, and then I'm going to just take some of my cardstock that I have here and kind of cut that out. And I did think about using like a the colors for the different shapes, like using orange for the flowers, and you know, just using different colors for the different types of shapes. But you could do that, but I don't think it's really necessary. And I was kind of just thinking it'd be easier if I just punched it out of whatever color was handy and then just glued it there. So I'm just going to glue it onto this paper here, and just to kind of have a visual representation of what this will look like when it punches out. There are some punches that have some embossing, and so that's nice to know if you have a punch that has embossing. that you can kind of see what that's going to look like. And I think I have one of those here. This one right here, it has some details and embossing in it. And so it's kind of nice not only to have the shape that it creates down here, but also to see, you know, kind of what it's going to look like when it punches out. Okay, so we're going to take in, go ahead and, so you could leave it like this and not round the corners, but I think over time that would get dog-eared as you kind of fool with the book. And so I would rather just kind of round those corners off, and I just think it looks nicer, and I think it's going to hold up a little bit better, having it like this with just hanging on my Raskog cart there. And you could actually bind this any way you wanted. You could also use the disc like I did for this one. This is with the disc bound system with these discs. But I thought it would just be easier just to do it like this. So we'd punch the hole, and a lot of times what I'll do is I'll do an assembly line. So instead of doing all of the different steps for each individual punch, I will just sit and punch out each one, and then I'll wait until I get a stack, and then I will round the corners. And then if I have some that I need to back underneath, I will do all of that at one time. So it makes it a little bit easier, and it goes much quicker just doing it like assembly line style. Okay, I'm trying to think of what else I wanted to mention to you guys. Shoot. So one of the other things I just wanted to mention, you'll notice here that I just have these little tabs that are at the top of this book, and it's just kind of a temporary thing that you can use. These are Post-it. They're called tabs, and you can write on them, and they are very cool because they're plastic, and so they last for a really long time, and you can use them over and over again. And so it's really cool. You can put them on anything, and you just pull it out like this. There's 66 in a package, and they come in different colors, but they're removable, so you can put them there or take them off, just like a Post-it note. They also come in other colors and different sizes. Like this one here is white, and it's got a much bigger writing surface. And so I like to have these in my craft room because as I'm working on projects, I can use them to do organizing, to put things on temporarily until I get something more permanent. Sometimes I use these for a permanent solution too, and I use these with my scrap rack. And I think that the scrap rack, Totally Tiffany sells these, and she calls them, what does she shut the flap, I think, because you can use them to keep the pockets closed on your scrap rack pages. But they're really cool. These are from Post-it, and I like using these in my craft room, and they come in really handy if you want to make temporary tabs on something when you're organizing, or even permanent. You could make this as a permanent tab, and you can write on these. So once I come up with all my categories, I could just use this and write the different categories on here, and that would work to use as dividers. Okay, well that's all I have for this video, but I'm going to be doing a part 2, and once I finish doing the reference guide and I figure out how I'm going to be kind of numbering and labeling the location of the different places in my craft room where I'm going to be storing my punches. Once I get that figured out and I can do some video footage of the different storage that I have, I will do a second video and kind of show you the finished project. But for now, this is kind of just the process that I'm going through to get my punches organized. And hopefully I'll be finishing this project soon. I'd like to finish this so I can move on to another project. And so hope that this helps you guys out there. And please be sure to check out Janet's video over at RTS Scrapbooking, and also Lauren Hines' video at Craft Some Joy, because those ladies have some really awesome organization ideas, and I've gotten a lot of inspiration from them. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, because it helps me to know what types of videos y'all like to see. It also helps YouTube to know which videos to recommend to people, because the more likes you get on a video, the more YouTube will recommend it. And also, if you have not subscribed but you want to see more videos like this one, please subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you as a subscriber. And That's all I have. So y'all have an awesome day and hope to see you next time. Bye now. Miss Bella, why are you trying to eat Lily Bell's food? Lily Bell's having an upset tummy day. Don't steal her food, okay? You're gonna get chubby. You don't want to get chubby, do you? Okay, were you just gonna tell me you were just trying to cover it up so you wouldn't be tempted? Is that what you were trying to do? I don't know. You better not go over there and steal her food. Okay? Don't steal her food.